In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. The 99 Beautiful of Names of God in Islam. By Imam Al-Ghazali. Al-Malik, the King. Al-Malik is the one whose essence and attributes are independent of all existing things, but everything in existence is dependent upon, in need of him. To be sure, nothing can exist without him, whether it be in respect of its essence, its attributes, its existence or its continued existence. Each and everything derives its existence from him or from that which is derived from him. Everything other than he himself is subject to him in respect of both its attributes and essence. He has no need for anything. This, indeed, is the absolute Al-Malik. An admonition. It is inconceivable that man could be an absolute king since he is not independent of everything. To the contrary, he is always a pauper before God Most High, and this would be the case even if he were independent of everyone except God. By the same token, it is also unthinkable that everything in the universe should have need of him. Rather, he should know that the majority of things in existence have no need of him. Man begins to understand the limited degree to which he can accept the title of king only when he knows that whereas he might be independent of some things, he shall always be totally dependent upon others. The true king among men is the one who realizes that in reality only God is the absolute king. For this reason he is always and ever totally dependent upon God, though he might be independent in certain human relationships. Nevertheless, he governs his own kingdom in such a manner that his troops and his subjects obey him. That kingdom which is his in a very specific way is his heart and his physical body. His troops are his appetite, anger, and passion. His subjects are his tongue, eyes, hands, and the remainder of his organs. He achieves the rank of a king in the world when he controls them and they do not control him, when they obey him and he does not obey them. If in addition to this he can become independent of all men, whereas mankind as such remains in dire need of him in respect of this life and that which is to come, then surely he becomes a king as far as this terrestrial world is concerned. This is the rank of the prophets, may the blessings of God and peace be upon them, for they could dispense with guidance in respect of the next life from everyone except God himself, while everyone remained in need of their direction. Next in order concerning this kingship are the scholars, the heirs of the prophets. Their supreme authority lies in the extent to which they have the ability of supplying spiritual guidance for men and at the same time remaining independent of seeking guidance from them. In this manner man is able to approach the angels and their characteristics and thereby draw near to God Most High. This kingship is a gift to man from the true king whose own kingship is shared with no one. The perceptive person was absolutely correct when one of the emirs said to him, "Ask of me that which you need," and he replied, "Do you ask this of me when I have 2 servants who are your masters?" The chief asked, "Who are they?" He answered, "Greed and vain desire. I have conquered them, but they have conquered you. Though I hold sway over them, they hold sway, rule over you." One of the mystics said to a senior, "Give me some advice." He replied, "Be a king in this world and in that life which is to come." The other asked, "How is this possible?" The senior answered, "The meaning is this. If you put an end to your greed and appetite for this world, you will be a king in both this world and the next. For certainly kingship consists of freedom and independence." Al-Quddus, the most holy one. Al-Quddus is the one who is above every description which human perception could apprehend, the imagination could grasp, the fancy could reach, the innermost consciousness could pervade and thereby have an understanding of him, or the reflection could determine. I do not merely say that he is free of faults and deficiencies, for the mention of this would be akin to a breach of propriety. Certainly it is not a part of propriety for one to speak of the king of a country and say, "He is not a weaver," or "He is not a cupper," for to deny the existence of an object in one sense of the word almost suggests that this object may exist and together with that suggestion there is a deficiency. I would rather say that the Most Holy One is totally free from all of the characteristics of perfection as the majority of people commonly understand this concept. This is the case since man normally looks to himself, first of all, in order to become acquainted with his own characteristics and thereby realizes that only some of them are perfect. The perfection he sees is related to his knowledge, power, hearing, seeing, speech, will, and choice. In conjunction with these faculties he applies the term, saying that these are the names of perfection. But this self-inspection also reveals areas of imperfection in respect of his ignorance, incapacity, blindness, deafness and dumbness, and vis-a-vis these faculties he applies the term imperfection. The aim of his praise and characterization of God Most High is that he might portray him in terms of the qualities of his own perfection, such as his knowledge, power, hearing, sight, and speech, though at the same time he withholds from him the characteristics of his imperfections. But God Most High is completely free from characterization in terms of man's perfection, even as he is free from characterization in terms of man's imperfections. God Most High is free from and exalted above every attribute that one could possibly ascribe to man, and above everything resembling them. Unless there is special permission to use names, and it is proper to do so, the majority of these attributes cannot be ascribed to God Most High. An admonition: man is holy to the extent that he sublimates his will and knowledge. As far as his knowledge is concerned, he should sublimate it from all objects of imagination, from things perceived through the senses as well as those merely fancied, and from all those perceptions in which the animal kingdom shares. Rather, the activities of his reflection and his knowledge should be concerned with those things which are above being, either near and apprehensible by sense, or distant and inaccessible to sense. In fact, he must rid his inner being of all objects of sense perception and imagination, and must acquire such forms of knowledge that, even were he deprived of the instruments of his sense perception and his imagination, it would continue to be noble, universal, divine knowledge related to the eternal and everlasting objects of knowledge, not personal knowledge subject to change and alteration. As far as his will is concerned, he should keep it free from concern for human fortunes, which in the final analysis are reduced to the pleasures of passion, anger, eating, marrying, dressing, feeling and gazing upon things, and the remainder of the pleasures he may attain by means of his sensory perception and the desires of his heart. Rather will he desire God alone. He will find pleasure only in God. His only real desire will be his meeting with God, and he will rejoice only in his proximity to God. If paradise and all its delights were offered to him, he would not concern himself with them. He will not be satisfied with anything in the house except the Lord of the house himself. In short, the sensory and imaginative perceptions are shared by the animal kingdom. This being the case, it is imperative that he advance beyond them to those things which are the particular characteristics of man. Appetitive, human satisfactions the animal kingdom knows also. Therefore, it is necessary that he free himself from these. The dignity of the seeker is commensurate with the dignity of that which he seeks. The one whose concern is with that which enters the belly will discover that his value is found in that which goes out of it. But the one who has no aspiration at all except for God himself will have a rank commensurate with his aspiration. The one who raises his knowledge above the stage of mere sensory perceptions and imaginations and dedicates his will to that which is above the demands of appetite, certainly he has entered the fullness of the realm of holiness. As-Salam, the sound one. As-Salam is the one whose essence is free from imperfection, his attributes from any trace of deficiency and his actions from evil. Since this is the case, there is no perfect, unimpaired state of being in existence except that which is ascribed to and emanates from him. Certainly you must understand that the actions of God are free from evil, that is to say, absolute evil which is desired for its own sake and not for a greater good resulting from it. There is no evil in existence which has this description, as we have indicated to you before. An admonition: the one who comes to God with a pure heart is the one whose heart is free of fraud, hatred, envy and the desire for evil, whose limbs are free of sin and forbidden things and whose attributes could not possibly be inverted or reversed. Among men he is the sound one, the description of whom brings him near to the absolute and true soundness which simply cannot be approached or matched by any other. When I refer you to an inversion of his attributes, I speak of the possibility of his intellect becoming a prisoner of his passion and anger, whereas the truth is the very opposite of this, namely, that greed and anger ought to be and are subject to his intellect and obey it. If this truth is reversed, certainly a relapse will result. There is no soundness at all when the ruler becomes the one who is ruled, and the king becomes the servant. No one is described by the term soundness and Islam except the one from whose tongue and hand the Muslims are safe. How can the one who is not safe from himself be characterized by soundness and Islam? All praises and thanks be to Allah.